Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Let's move directly into today's analysis. We've received a circulating update that suggests movement behind the scenes involving key individuals who, according to the claim, have not been repositioned in years and are now allegedly preparing to handle exchange-related activity. The report also mentions that certain individuals have begun traveling west, implying possible coordination outside of Iraq. Importantly, the source itself categorizes this information as rumor, and no official confirmation has been provided. As responsible analysts, we need to approach this carefully. When rumors emerge about personnel movements tied to exchange processes, especially within discussions surrounding the Iraqi dinar, they tend to trigger excitement. Many followers of the IQD market interpret such language as a sign of imminent revaluation or international rate change. However, from a financial and institutional perspective, personnel movement alone is not evidence of currency reform. Let's break this down in a structured and realistic way. First, any official change to the Iraqi dinar exchange rate would involve the coordination of the Central Bank of Iraq, widely known as the CBI, along with Iraq's Ministry of Finance, and potentially oversight or advisory cooperation with institutions such as the International Monetary Fund. A currency rate adjustment is not executed quietly by relocating unnamed individuals. It requires legal authorization, structured policy alignment, banking system readiness, and public communication mechanisms. If we look at historical precedents in Iraq's monetary history, including the 2020 exchange rate adjustment, when Iraq officially devalued the dinar to address fiscal pressures, the process was announced publicly through formal channels. It involved parliamentary awareness, government coordination, and clear implementation instructions to domestic banks. There was no secrecy surrounding that decision once it became official. That context is important. Now, could there be internal preparations within Iraq's banking or financial system? Absolutely. Iraq has been modernizing its banking infrastructure for years. The country has worked to digitize payments, strengthen compliance systems, integrate international banking standards, and improve transparency in foreign currency transfers. Movement of financial personnel could relate to regulatory upgrades, correspondent banking relationships, anti-money laundering compliance, or cross-border settlement mechanisms. But those types of structural adjustments do not automatically signal a sudden revaluation event. When the rumor references travel west, that language is often interpreted symbolically as movement toward Western financial institutions. In reality, Iraqi officials regularly travel to engage with global partners, whether in the United States, Europe, or multilateral organizations. That is standard practice for a country managing oil revenues, currency reserves, and international trade relationships. It is also important to consider the broader macroeconomic backdrop. Iraq's economy remains heavily dependent on oil exports. Oil revenue accounts for the majority of government income and supports the country's foreign currency reserves. Any sustainable adjustment to the dinar's exchange rate would require stability in oil markets, manageable fiscal deficits, strong reserve coverage, and controlled inflation. Recent years have shown that the CBI prioritizes exchange rate stability over sudden shifts. Stability supports predictable import pricing, controls inflationary pressures, and maintains confidence in the domestic banking system. Rapid appreciation of a currency without corresponding economic fundamentals can damage export competitiveness and create liquidity distortions. Therefore, from a policy standpoint, central banks tend to move cautiously. The rumor specifically mentions individuals being moved to start handling exchanges. That phrase can be interpreted in multiple ways. It could refer to foreign exchange operations, which are already conducted daily by Iraqi banks under the supervision of the CBI. It could refer to training or compliance preparation, or it could simply be speculative language circulating within investor communities. What it does not provide is documentation. There are no official statements from the Central Bank of Iraq. There is no public government directive. There is no parliamentary announcement. There is no IMF policy update indicating an imminent rate regime shift. Without those elements, the information remains speculative. As financial observers, we must separate anticipation from confirmation. Short term, what does this mean for Iraqi dinar followers? In the immediate term, rumors like this tend to increase online discussion and emotional sentiment within dinar communities. However, the official exchange rate framework remains unchanged unless and until the CBI publishes a new rate or adjusts its policy structure. Market reality is determined by official policy decisions, not private chatter. Short-term exchange rate adjustments typically follow macroeconomic triggers such as fiscal imbalance, currency reserve shifts, inflation spikes, or structural reforms tied to international agreements. None of those have been officially linked to an immediate revaluation at this time. From a liquidity standpoint, Iraqi banks operate within established currency auction systems and regulated foreign transfer platforms. Movement of personnel would not override those institutional mechanisms. Now let's consider the longer-term implications. Iraq's long-term economic trajectory depends on diversification beyond oil, private sector development, infrastructure modernization, and regulatory transparency. Over time, as economic productivity increases and fiscal stability strengthens, a currency can gradually appreciate if supported by fundamentals. However, appreciation is typically incremental and data-driven. It reflects economic growth, trade balance improvements, and foreign direct investment inflows. It is rarely the result of a sudden, secretive event. One factor investors should monitor is Iraq's foreign currency reserve position. Strong reserves provide exchange rate defense capacity. Another is inflation. A central bank will not pursue appreciation if it risks destabilizing domestic price stability. Additionally, international confidence in Iraq's financial compliance systems plays a major role. Anti-money laundering standards, correspondent banking relationships, and cross-border settlement transparency are critical. If personnel movement is connected to strengthening these systems, that would be constructive for Iraq's long-term economic credibility. But constructive infrastructure reform is different from immediate exchange activation. Another important point is investor psychology. The phrase, "It is finally time," is emotionally powerful language. Yet central banking does not operate on emotional timing. It operates on policy frameworks. Decisions are documented, structured, and publicly recorded. History has shown that rumors frequently surface before major financial events, but history has also shown that the majority of such rumors do not materialize into immediate currency changes. Responsible analysis requires patience and verification. For IQD followers, the most productive approach is to monitor official CBI releases, Iraqi government financial statements, IMF country reports, and oil revenue trends. Those are measurable indicators. Personnel movement without official confirmation remains background noise. Let's also address the concept of handling exchanges. In modern banking, currency exchange is a routine operational function performed continuously by authorized banks. There is no need to relocate secret teams to initiate basic exchange activity. If there were to be a redenomination, revaluation, or structural rate adjustment, the implementation would require public banking directives, software updates across the domestic banking system, and coordinated communication. Those steps cannot remain hidden for long. From a risk perspective, it is important for viewers not to make financial decisions based on unverified information. Currency markets are complex and influenced by geopolitical, fiscal, and monetary policy factors. Overexposure to speculative expectations can lead to poor financial planning. Maintaining realistic expectations protects investors from emotional decision-making. Now, could there be internal preparations happening within Iraq that are not yet public? Certainly. Governments and central banks often prepare policy options before announcing them. That is normal. However, preparation does not equal activation. The distinction between preparation and execution is critical. In the current global economic environment, central banks worldwide are focused on inflation management, currency stability, and fiscal discipline. Iraq is no exception. Sudden, large-scale currency appreciation without strong structural backing would introduce risk rather than stability. If anything, Iraq's recent monetary behavior has emphasized controlled management rather than dramatic shifts. So where does this leave us? At this stage, the information remains in the rumor category. It may reflect internal administrative adjustments. It may represent ordinary travel by financial officials, or it may be speculative amplification within investor groups. Until we see formal confirmation from the Central Bank of Iraq or official government channels, there is no verified evidence of an imminent exchange rate change. In the short term, expect stability unless official announcements indicate otherwise. In the long term, watch for economic reforms, diversification progress, fiscal management improvements, and strengthening of financial institutions. Those are the real drivers of currency value. For serious observers of the Iraqi dinar, the key is discipline. Monitor data, avoid hype, stay grounded in economic fundamentals. Excitement is understandable, especially when rumors reference long-awaited developments. But sustainable financial outcomes are built on transparent policy, not speculation. We will continue to track verified developments, official statements, and credible financial indicators so that you receive accurate, balanced analysis. If meaningful movement occurs within Iraq's monetary policy framework, it will be supported by documentation, not whispers. Thank you for watching. If you appreciate responsible and factual Iraqi dinar updates, make sure to subscribe and stay connected for continued coverage. And as always, please remember that this content is provided for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice.